Hello everyone, so today we're going to go over the Unit 2 practice test. We'll begin with the multiple choice questions. Question number 1. We have the graph of y equals to the square root of x, and then we have the graph of y equals to the square root of x plus k, which is an image. As we can see here, the graph was moved down 4 spaces, like so. Sorry about that. So this is down 4. So therefore k was equal to -4. Which means that the correct choice will be B. Okay. Question number 2. The graph of y equals f of x is translated 3 units to the right and 4 units down. What is the equation of the translation image in terms of the function f of x? So in this case, we know that the c value must be equal to 3, and that the d value must be -4. So here we have then y equals f of x minus 3 and then -4 outside of the parentheses. And the -4 can be moved to the left-hand side, so we have y plus 4 is equal to f of x minus 3. So the correct choice is B. Question number 3. The graph of f of x is an image of y equals x squared after a horizontal translation and a vertical translation. What is the equation of the image graph? So in this case, we can see that the graph was moved 3 units to the right and 2 units down. So that's 3 to the right and 2 down. Which means then the c value is equal to 3 and the d value is equal to -2. Which means that we have y is equal to f of x minus 3 minus 2. In this case, f of x is x squared, so we just have y equals to x minus 3 squared and then minus 2. Which means that the correct choice is B once again. Because notice that we can move the -2 to the left-hand side and end with y plus 2 is equal to x minus 3 squared. Okay. Let's continue with number 4. So the graph of y equals f of x is translated, and the equation of the image graph is y plus 3 is equal to f of x plus 4. So we're to find the image graph. So we can see here that the graph was moved down 3 spaces and also left 4 spaces. And if we look at all 4 of the graphs, the only one that matches the correct description is C. Since the original function contained this point here, 2, 0, and the point 2, 0, which is this point here, was move left 4 and down 3. And then the rest of the points also matches, so this is the correct graph. Okay, so the choice here is C. Let's move on to number 5. All right, so we are once again given y equals f of x. We're simply looking for y equals to negative f of x. And as we know, this is simply a reflection over the x-axis, which means the graph would just be upside down. Okay, so the correct choice here, once again, is C. Number 6. Okay, the graph of y equals x plus 7 squared minus 4 is reflected in the y-axis, and the image is shown. What is the equation of the image? So in this case, if there's a reflection in the y-axis, then we have y equals f of x will become y equals f of negative x. Okay, so after the reflection, the equation will become y equals to negative x plus 7 squared minus 4. So notice that we can factor out a negative 1 from inside the parenthesis. So we have negative and then x minus 7, and then all squared minus 4, like so. And if we square just to negative 1, then it becomes positive. So we actually just have y equals to x minus 7 squared minus 4. Okay, so the correct choice this time is B, which is, of course, also the graph right here. Okay, number 7. Actually, before moving on to number 7, once again, just with a little bit more detail here, we are actually rewriting this as y equals to, and then negative 1 squared, and then also x minus 7 squared, and then minus 4. So that's how the expansion would look like. And then afterwards, we'll get y equals to just x minus 7 squared minus 4, since negative 1 squared is positive 1. Okay, so number 7. The graph of f of x is stretched vertically by a factor of 6. What is the equation of the image graph in terms of the function f? So this is simply going to be letting a equal to 6. Again, we use y equals to a, and then f of b, x minus c, plus d for vertical stretch and reflection for a, b is for horizontal stretch and reflection, c is for horizontal translation, and d is for vertical translation. So with that in mind, the correct answer in this case will simply be y equals to 6f of x. So the correct choice here is A. Number 8. The graph of f of x is compressed horizontally by a factor of 2 and reflected in the y-axis. What is the equation of the image graph in terms of the function f? So, with these two transformations, the compression horizontally and also the reflection in the y-axis, they can be combined to say that b is equal to -2. Since the reflection in the y-axis is a horizontal reflection, so b is negative, and if we compress a graph horizontally by a factor of half, the b value is going to be 2. So combined is going to give us a b value of -2. So in this case, then the correct choice is C, just like in the previous question. In that we followed the changing of A, B, C, D for the corresponding transformations. Okay, number 9. If the point A, which has coordinates 16, 64, lies on the graph of y equals to the square root of x cubed, what are the coordinates of of its image A prime on the graph of 1/4 and then the square root of 2x cubed? All right, so this one, there's two things to consider. There is the 1/4 and also the 2. So the 1/4 is going to be a vertical stretch by a quarter. And then the 2 is a horizontal stretch by half. Okay, so what this does is that the x value of 16 will be halved and becomes 8. And for the vertical stretch by a quarter, the y value of 64 will be divided by 4 and will give us 16. So ultimately, A prime will have the coordinates 8 and then 16. So the correct choice is A. So let's move on to number 10. The graph of g of x is a transformation of the image of the graph y equals to the square root of x. The corresponding points are indicated. What is an equation of the image graph in terms of x? So there are 2 points of note on the original function. The point 0, 0, and also the point 4, 2. Okay, so in g of x, we also have 0, 0. However, the point 4, 2 has been transformed to 2, -6. So the fact that 0, 0 stays the same tells us that there is no translations. So all the transformations here are either stretches or reflections. Okay, so let's consider the point 4, 2 becoming 2, -6. Okay, so first, the 4 becomes a 2, so we had a horizontal stretch by a half. The graph was also reflected over the x-axis as the positive y value becomes negative. And finally, there was a vertical stretch by a factor of 3, since a value of 2 becomes a value of negative 6. So the first transformation tells us that the b value was simply 2. And the last two transformation tells us that the a value must have been negative 3. So altogether then, we have the function y is equal to negative 3 and then the square root of 2x. Like so. So that means that the correct choice in this case will be A. Okay, moving on to number 11. The graph of f of x is translated 2 units down and 4 units left. So going back to translations only. So in this case, we have a d value of negative 2 and a c value of negative 4, which means that the correct choice was D. Right, so we'll get y is equal to f of x plus 4 and then minus 2, which is the same as y plus 2 equals to f of x plus 4. So the choice is D. Okay, number 12. Which statement below describes the graph f of x that has been transformed to get the graph of y equals f of negative 1/3 and then x minus 2? All right. So let's look at each individual part. Do we have a negative sign in the front of the 1/3? So this actually tells us that the graph is reflected over the y-axis. Oh, sorry. Okay, after that we have the 1/3. That will be a horizontal stretch by 3. And then finally, the 2 here tells us the graph was moved right 2 spaces. So if we look through each statements A, B, C, and D, the one that contains all 3 transformations is C. Okay, let's move on to number 13. The graph of g of x is the image of the graph of f of x. After a combination of transformations, the corresponding points are labeled. Okay, so again, we're looking for the equation of the image graph. So a couple of things to consider here. The points were 0, 0, and then again 4, 2 in the original function f of x, and then in g of x we have the point negative 4, negative 3, and also the point 2, negative 4. Okay. So the fact that the point 0, 0 was relocated to negative 4, negative 3 tells us that the graph was moved left 4 spaces and down 3 spaces. So therefore, the C value must have been -4, and the D value must have been -3. Okay, so next, we need to consider what happens going from the point 0, 0 to the point 4, 2. Use a different color here. So notice that going from 0, 0 to 4, 2, we move up 2 spaces. And that was not done, sorry, right, so that's up 2 spaces. And then let's look at what happens in the second graph. Instead of going up 2 spaces, we actually go down 1 space. Okay, which means that there was a reflection in the x-axis because up becomes down, and also there was a vertical stretch by 1/2 because it was up 2 spaces, but now it's down 1 space, going from point to point. Oh, sorry. Okay, up 2 to down 1 means that there was a reflection over the x-axis, and there was a vertical stretch by 1/2. Which combined tells us that the A value is -1/2. And finally, the last part, so let's use a different color here as well. The original graph moved right 4 spaces. The new graph moves right 6 spaces. So right 4, and here right 6. Okay. Right 4 becoming right 6. That must have been a horizontal stretch by 3/2. Which tells us that the B value is 2/3, and that's a bit tricky. Since we actually take the reciprocal of the factor by which the horizontal stretch happened. So in this case, since the horizontal stretch was by 3/2, the B value is 2/3. And combining all 4 of those A, B, C, and D values that we found, we get y is equal to -1/2, and then f of 2/3, and then x plus 4, and then outside of the parentheses, -3. And so the answer is A. Okay, so a little bit more complex question in that case. Okay, let's move on to number 14. Which statement below describes how the graph y plus 2 equals to -2 square root of x minus 3 is related to the graph of y equals the square root of x. All right. So here we have a d value of -2, a value of also -2, and a b value, sorry, not a b value, that's a c value of 3. So let's start with the a value. The a value tells us that there was a reflection over the x-axis. That is to say, the graph is upside down. And it also tells us that there was a vertical stretch by 2. I'm going to write the short form for that. Next up is the c value. The c value simply says that the graph was moved right 3 spaces. And the d value tells us that the graph was moved down 2 spaces. And looking over the statements A, B, C, and D, the only one that contains the correct transformation is A. And finally, question number 15. A transformation image of the graph y equals f of x is presented by the equation y minus 3 is equal to -2f of 5 times x minus 3. If the point 15, 5 lies on the original function y equals f of x, what are the coordinates of the corresponding point on the image graph? Alrighty. So in this case, we know that a is equal to -2, b is equal to 5, c is equal to 3, and d is equal to 3 as well. So let's start with A. It will be a vertical stretch by a factor of 2 and also a reflection. The point 15, 5 undergoing that transformation alone will become 15, -10. Next up is the b equals 5 value. That will be a horizontal stretch by 1/5. So we now have 3, -10. From there, the graph is moved right 3 spaces, so we have 6, -10. And finally, the graph is moved up 3 spaces, so that will be 6 and then -7. Alright, so the correct choice in this case is B. And that concludes the multiple choice portion of this practice test. Thank you for listening.